Dyslexia is not a pigeonhole to say you can't do anything. What if I was standing here today and I couldn't remember my speech? I couldn't think of anything to say. I couldn't get words out of my mouth just because of one word that has been so negatively impacted on my life that I may not have the same mentality as many of you sitting here today. I am Freya Leggat. I'm a student not unlike many of you, and I'm so fortunate to be able to study one of my passions, English literature, amongst many other subjects. However, there is something that separates me from many of you here today. Something that makes me different from you, possibly you, as well as a name. I have a label. And that label is Freya Leggat dyslexic. Think of that word, dyslexic. Dyslexic. Dys. This is a Greek prefix that denotes pain, difficulty, or trouble. All negative. Think of dysfunctional. Negative. All the words I've just said to you are something negative. And that immediately teaches our brain that dyslexic could be seen as being negative. But take a look at this. Try reading it. How was it? Frustrating? This is a simulation of how some dyslexic people see and read texts, and it's made to make you decode each word. But where does dyslexia, what does it actually mean? Some people, when they hear the word dyslexia, think of words being seen as backwards. However, this isn't the full picture. Dyslexic people see and interpret texts the same as everyone else. So their brain doesn't have a problem with seeing the words. It has a problem with manipulating them. But where does dyslexia come from? Dyslexia was first coined 130 years ago by a German ophthalmologist, Rudolf Berlin. He noticed when testing people's eyesight that their brain didn't have a problem with actually seeing the words. Their eyesight was fine. However, their brain couldn't get the words out, possibly not being able to say them, or just not being able to read them. But what's the actual difference between someone with dyslexia and someone without dyslexia? The brain is split into two hemispheres, the left one being in charge of language and equally reading, logic, and maths. The right side is more creative. The problem with dyslexic people's brains is they rely more on the right-hand side and the frontal lobe. But let's put that into context. Take reading a word. Seems easy, doesn't it? However, that word will take longer to go through the brain and into the right-hand side of the brain, and it may even get delayed in the frontal lobe. It is vital that educators separate people with this SPLD, specific learning difficulty, from quantifying someone's intelligence. Educators, in particular, must stop assuming that those who have dyslexia are not as capable as those who don't. But it's good knowing facts. But what actually happens in someone's mentality who have dyslexia? There are many attitudes of repercussions within education. Some dyslexic people may give up and use it as a get-out of working hard and consequently may never go on to achieving their full potential in life. All because this one word has been so misunderstood within education. As a dyslexic child's mother says, some educators are not qualified to teach dyslexic students? How? How can this teacher give such a negative label to dyslexic students when their label isn't even qualified to teach them? I have been labeled my entire life because I have dyslexia. It would be compulsory for me to go out of a lesson and into my own special extra lesson. Having these lessons, watching the rest of my classmates get on with their work, made me feel abnormal, making me feel as if I was gagged and blindfolded while they had all of their senses alive, leaving me in the dark of what I could actually achieve. Growing older, I was told I would never be good at English and never get rid of this label. However, I'm standing here today with a GCSE in both English literature and English language, also being accepted to do English literature as a higher level subject in an international baccalaureate. And it hasn't been an easy journey for me. But I did this despite of those individuals that made me feel different. Even though I did not look different, speak different, I was treated differently. I have been labeled my entire life, and sadly, these labels have repercussions. These repercussions did not only accept my self-esteem, my confidence, my future career choices, but something people don't usually think about, my friendships. Hence, this label has had a reoccurring, never-ending impact on my life and probably many other dyslexic people's lives, and it must stop. Educators shouldn't be so quick to label deviations from the norm as inefficient. Neither should they say a dyslexic person isn't as good academically as someone without dyslexia. But in my eyes, dyslexia is not an easy word to define. There are many aspects of dyslexia. 1 in 5 people are affected with dyslexia, and it varies from mild, having a profound case of it. But no one should use this as an excuse to not succeed in a task or a subject. You guys probably know Einstein, right? He had dyslexia. Today, he is known as one of the greatest mathematicians or physicists to have ever walked this planet, having taught himself his own Pythagoras theorem by the age of 12. However, did you know that he couldn't talk until the age of 4? Couldn't read until the age of 9? Many of his teachers labeled him as mentally handicapped. However, because this SPLD had not been discovered at that point, no one labeled him as dyslexic. Imagine that this label had been discovered then. People like Einstein, Da Vinci, may never have gone on and excelled and made such significant changes to our lives today and our society because they may have been labeled weird, disadvantaged, or dyslexic. But what do I and others like me want to see happen and change in the mind of educators? Yes, my reading speed may be slower, but my understanding is the same. Access arrangements such as extra time remain essential. However, there should be no difference between myself and the person standing next to me in day-to-day classroom teaching. Whether you're a student, parent, teacher, or even someone sitting here with dyslexia, maybe it's the label that's causing our children or peers to be undergraduated. And not because of the label itself, not because of the SPLD itself. As Einstein once said, everybody is a genius, But if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. Thank you.